$435 for a fragrance that the community has been debating for a decade. Not because everyone hates it, but because half the bottles smell different from the other half, and nobody at the brand will tell you why. That is Creed Aventus in 2026, and it is the most expensive item on this list. Most of what gets wasted on fragrance does not arrive in a bottle that costly. It arrives in bottles that feel reasonable. $95 here, $115 there, while containing a molecule that costs the brand under $10 to produce. 7 fragrances most men waste money on, and what the same scent costs when nobody is charging you for the badge. If content that takes the cap off the bottle and shows you what you are actually paying for sounds worth watching, hit the subscribe button. It helps these videos reach the buyers being talked into premium prices for scent they could already be wearing for a fraction of it. Here are the 7. Ranked from the most expensive mistake to the one where spending more is occasionally honest. Number 1. Creed Aventus. The $400 lottery. Begin with Aventus since it is already on the table. What made it a legend is that it popularized the idea of a masculine fragrance that smelled genuinely expensive without smelling like an expensive fragrance. Birch, pineapple, blackcurrant, ambergris, oak moss, musk. A composition that felt simultaneously fresh and luxurious in a way that nothing else in mainstream masculine perfumery had quite achieved in 2010. That reputation is deserved. The formula is excellent. The trouble is entirely in the arithmetic and what happened after. From approximately 2015 onward, the community began documenting what became one of the most sustained quality control conversations in fragrance history. The same bottle, purchased in different years, produced by different batch runs, smells different, not slightly different. Different enough that collectors built spreadsheet databases of batch numbers, tracking the year of production from the code printed on the box, sharing findings about which batches maintained the original birch and pineapple character, and which had softened into something generically warm and pleasant. That is not a recipe for a $435 fragrance. That is a recipe for a lottery. When you spend $435 on a bottle of wine, you can reasonably expect that it tastes like the vintage on the label. When you spend $435 on Aventus, you are buying one draw from a slot machine the house has never fully explained. I handed a friend a decant of something and asked him to compare it to his Aventus bottle. He smelled both for a while. He said they were similar. He tried again. He decided the decant might be slightly better in the opening. It was not. Both smelled good. One cost $435. The other was Armaf Club de Nuit Intense Man, which retails at $25 and has been placed against Aventus in community blind tests more times than either brand would prefer discussed. The gap in quality between them is real and detectable to a trained nose. It is not a 17 times the price gap. Nothing is a 17 times the price gap. He still has the Aventus. He has not bought another bottle. The alternative is not simply to buy the clone. It is to understand what Aventus was actually doing and find something that does it reliably. Parfums de Marly Leighton, at $295, operates in the same warm masculine territory with apple, lavender, pepper, vanilla, and sandalwood sourced at genuine quality levels. The community documents consistent batch quality across years of production and compliment rates that match or exceed what Aventus generates at its best. You are still spending significant money. You are spending it on a formula the batch system does not undermine. The other option is to embrace the clone market honestly. Armaf at $25 does not replicate every dimension of Aventus, but it replicates the one most people bought Aventus for. The badge is not that dimension. Number 2. Dior Sauvage EDT. The one-molecule formula. The green Ibanez tube screamer built its legend on a single operational amplifier chip called the RC4558 that costs about as much as a stick of gum. The guitar community spent years assuming the magic was in the circuit, the components, the Japanese manufacturing. It was in the chip, and once the community figured that out, the entire pricing structure of vintage tube screamers started looking different. Dior Sauvage EDT built its legend on a single aroma chemical called ambroxide, that was originally developed through research into natural ambergris, is now synthetically produced at industrial scale, and costs the manufacturer a fraction of what they charge you to smell it. Ambroxide creates a warm, skin-close, slightly woody amber effect that is perceived as clean, expensive, and distinctly modern. It is genuinely useful. It is present in hundreds of mainstream masculine fragrances at prices that range from $20 to $300. It is the RC4558 of fragrance, and knowing it exists changes how you read the shelf. Sauvage EDT retails at $95. The campaign that accompanies it, Johnny Depp, reported at $20 million, plus the Robert Pattinson campaign, plus the Kylian Mbappé deal, plus airport billboard placement across 4 continents, represents a marketing investment that gets baked directly into every bottle you buy. The formula itself is competent and well-engineered. The ambroxan is well supported by pepper and bergamot in the opening and by vetiver in the base. It is a good fragrance. It is not a $95 fragrance in a market where the same ambroxan in the same structural arrangement appears in releases costing $20 to $30. The difference between Sauvage and Rasasi Hawas is not $95 minus $30. It is the cost of Johnny Depp's contract. The useful truth about ambroxan is the same useful truth about the RC4558. The guitar players who figured out that the chip was the trick could buy the chip in a different enclosure for a fraction of the tube screamer price and get most of what they were looking for. The fragrance buyers who figure out that ambroxan is the trick can find it in Azerochrome, Rasasi Hawas, or any number of Gulf market Orientals at a fraction of Sauvage's price. The community's blind test record on this is consistent. Buyers who know what ambroxan smells like and evaluate it in isolation cannot reliably distinguish the source. The bottle design and the campaign have been doing most of the work. The molecule was never the secret. The molecule is cheap. The exception worth noting: Sauvage EDP and Sauvage Elixir are different conversations. The EDP extends the formula into something with genuine depth and significantly better performance per dollar at around $115. The Elixir is a concentrated Oriental that shares almost nothing with the EDT beyond the name. If someone is going to spend Sauvage money, the EDT is the specific version of that money being wasted. If this is changing how you look at the prices on your shelf, hit the subscribe button. This channel follows the chemistry, not the campaign. 4 more to go, and the list gets more honest in both directions. Number 3. Tom Ford Neroli Portofino, 3 hours at $280. Here is the specific calculation most buyers never run. Tom Ford Neroli Portofino retails at $280 for 50 milliliters. The community documents its longevity at 3 to 4 hours on skin, beautiful for those hours, widely praised for the quality of the citrus accord, and then simply gone. If you apply it in the morning and it has faded entirely by early afternoon, you paid $280 for a fragrance experience that lasted approximately 3 hours. That is roughly $93 per hour of actual wear, which is a price that makes luxury hotel rates look reasonable. The problem is not that Tom Ford Private Blend produces bad fragrances. Oud Wood is genuinely excellent and earns its $290 price through a formula that develops over 8 to 12 hours. The problem is that Neroli Portofino is a fresh citrus composition built from bergamot, neroli, and lemon, inherently volatile materials that evaporate quickly regardless of how well the formula is constructed or how much it costs. Citrus top notes are the most ephemeral category in fragrance chemistry. They are the first to arrive and the first to leave. A fresh citrus fragrance that lasts 12 hours either contains synthetic fixatives that change its character or is making claims that physics does not support. The alternative is to buy a fresh citrus fragrance that is honest about what it is and priced accordingly. Acqua di Parma Colonia EDT has been producing a refined Italian citrus composition continuously since 1916 and retails at around $100 for 50 milliliters. It does not last significantly longer than Neroli Portofino. Citrus is citrus, and physics does not negotiate, but it does not cost $280 for the privilege of evaporating before noon. Cartier Declaration, at $65, achieves a similar clean citrus woody character with vetiver and cardamom, giving the base more staying power than pure citrus alone. These are not inferior fragrances. They are honest fragrances priced for what they actually are, rather than for the retail environment they are sold in. The lesson is not that Tom Ford Private Blend is a fraud. Oud Wood is a real achievement and the formula earns its price over 12 hours on skin. Tobacco Vanille is built around genuine warmth and complexity that holds through the day. The lesson is that Neroli Portofino is a 3-hour citrus experience priced like a 12-hour luxury composition, and the buyer who runs the math before buying is in a fundamentally different position from the buyer who runs it afterward. Number 4. Paco Rabanne 1 million. EDT, paying for the reputation of a formula you cannot buy. In the fuzz pedal category, collectors pay 4 figures for vintage units because the germanium transistors inside were inconsistently manufactured during production. Some of those transistors happen to sound extraordinary. Most sounded ordinary. The difference between an exceptional fuzz face and a mediocre one from the same production run was not design. It was the manufacturing lottery of the transistors that got soldered in. The winning tickets became rare. The market priced them accordingly. None of that was the fault of the original design. The design was always the same design. The lottery was built into the production method, and the market turned a manufacturing inconsistency into a collector's premium. The Paco Rabanne 1 million EDT is not a four-figure fragrance, but the dynamic is identical, and the community documentation of it is extensive. The formula that built its reputation, the leather, the specific amber warmth, the sweetness that the community documents from pre-2018 production, has been progressively softened in current batches. The leather note that gave 1 million its specific character, distinguishing it from generic sweet orientals in the same category, is more restrained in recent production than in the bottles that built the reviews. The longevity that collectors documented at 10 to 12 hours in forum discussions from 2015 and 2016 sits closer to 6 to 8 hours in current production discussions. The fragrance you buy new today at $90 is not the fragrance that generated the reviews you read before deciding to buy it. You are paying the market price for a reputation that current production does not fully deliver. The reformulation was never announced. The price did not adjust downward when the formula did. That gap, between what you are paying for and what you are receiving, is the specific definition of waste. The community's response to this mirrors the vintage fuzz market exactly. Some buyers specifically seek out pre-2018 bottles on secondary market platforms, paying premiums to access the formula they were told they were buying. Others accept the current version as good enough and move on. The useful response is neither. It is to understand that 1 million EDT was an excellent warm oriental built for a specific demographic, and that D&G the 1 EDT at $65 delivers tobacco, amber, and cardamom warmth at a comparable level of sophistication without the reformulation history clouding the purchase. Jean-Paul Gaultier, Le Male Parfum at $65, is the more robust version of the same warm masculine territory with documented 12 to 16 hours on skin in current production. The formula you are actually buying with both of those is the formula they are actually selling. The reputation gap on 1 million EDT is the thing the $90 is partially buying, and that is the specific kind of spending this list is about. Number 5. Armani Code. Absolute. The flanker problem. A clean boost pedal is one gain stage, often a single transistor. That makes your signal louder so the next thing in the chain works harder. Boutique builders sell these for $180 by reaching for words like air and three-dimensionality. The circuit is a single transistor. The Armani Code Absolute is the fragrance equivalent. Armani Code EDT, launched in 2004, is a legitimate masculine classic. Tonka, tobacco, leather, amber, bergamot, a warm, aromatic oriental that has been generating compliments for 20 years and that retails around $90. Armani Code Absolute, launched in 2019 as a concentrated variation, retails at $115 for the privilege of owning a sweeter, heavier version of something you can already have for less. The flanker problem is specific and pervasive across designer fragrance. A successful masculine launches. The brand produces a concentration variation, an EDP, an Absolute, an Intense, at a premium over the original. The buyer who loved the original is told that this new version is deeper, richer, more evolved. Sometimes this is true. The Sauvage EDP is a meaningfully different and better composition than the Sauvage EDT. The Acqua di Gio Parfum is a genuine improvement over the EDT with the incense note adding real character. But Armani Code Absolute takes the code formula, pushes the sweetness past the point that made the original elegant, and charges $25 more for the privilege. The sweetness in Absolute that the marketing describes as richness is the kind of sweetness that the original's restraint was specifically avoiding. The practical test is simple, and the guitar community uses a version of it constantly. Blind test the original against the flanker. Strip the bottle design, the marketing language, and the price differential. Evaluate what is on skin at hour 1, hour 4, and hour 8. The code EDT holds its character across the day with a specific elegant restraint that the Absolute abandons for sweetness in the first 30 minutes. Most buyers who do this test and have not already paid for the Absolute come back to the EDT. The buyers who have already paid for the Absolute keep wearing it and call it a preference. Both responses are fine. The point is that the $25 premium is buying a variation, not an improvement. And the buyer who understands that before spending is in a different position from the one who understands it afterward. All the fragrances and alternatives mentioned in this video are tagged with the best current prices I could find. Check those links. The last two entries are where the story gets more honest in both directions. Number 6. Byredo. Paying for the design store. The delay pedal is where I will give the boutique world some ground, because the story is more honest in both directions. The expensive analog delays are sometimes genuinely better made than the budget alternatives, and build quality matters on a stage where things get knocked around. The formula quality is real, but the expensive ones are often priced 5 times higher than a part that came off the same reel, and the extra cost is primarily in the enclosure, the name on the faceplate, and the retail environment that chose to stock it. Byredo is the fragrance equivalent of this. The formula quality is real. The retail environment is the premium. Ben Gorham founded Byredo in Stockholm in 2006. The brand's aesthetic, the clean white packaging, the minimal typography, the design store retail presence is genuinely beautiful and genuinely considered. The fragrances are well formulated. Gypsy Water is a genuinely accomplished woody citrus composition. Bal d'Afrique has a specific African floral character that is original and worth exploring. The quality of the formulas is not the problem. The problem is that Byredo was acquired by Puig in 2022, which means the formulas that were genuinely artisan products now exist within the same conglomerate structure as Carolina Herrera and Prada fragrances, at prices that reflect the artisan positioning they used to occupy rather than the corporate reality they now inhabit. You are paying $250 for a formula that is produced within a conglomerate infrastructure, in a bottle that has been designed to look like it comes from somewhere that no longer fully exists. The community's assessment of post-acquisition Byredo is cautious rather than damning. The formulas do not appear to have significantly changed in character. The quality control is maintained. The problem is specifically the value proposition and the story being sold alongside the formula. At $250, you are substantially paying for a design store experience and a brand identity that projects independent artisan credibility while operating within a conglomerate structure that produces dozens of mainstream fragrance lines simultaneously. That is not a crime. It is a business model. It is worth knowing that it is the business model before the money changes hands. The Parfums de Nicolai equivalent of Byredo, a house that is actually still independently owned and operated by the granddaughter of Jean-Paul Guerlain, still producing at original formula quality, still maintaining genuine creative independence 35 years after founding, charges between $100 and $200 for formulas of comparable sophistication. The quality difference between these two houses is not the price difference. The story difference is the price difference. The delay is worth buying when you know what you are actually paying for. You should know that before you open your wallet rather than after you open the box. Number 7. Sauvage Interlude Man. The reverb problem. Reverb is where I will hand the expensive end of this list the most ground I have given it all day. A Strymon, or a high-end algorithmic reverb, is running real engineering, actual acoustic modeling developed over years by people with specific expertise, that a $40 pedal never paid for. You can hear the difference if you go looking for it. The 7th fragrance on this list is in the same category. Sauvage was founded in 1983 in the Sultanate of Oman, with a mandate documented in the house's founding brief. Produce the finest fragrance that Arabian aromatic heritage and Western perfumery craft can achieve. Interlude Man is built from frankincense, labdanum, amber, and a specific aromatic accord of unusual complexity. The materials are real. The construction is genuinely sophisticated. The $350 price reflects formula quality that the brands above it on this list cannot consistently claim. The problem is not the fragrance. The problem is the use. Most reverb buyers park the pedal on a single setting and never explore the shimmer modes or the long decaying tails they paid for. The amplifier standing behind them has a spring reverb built in that covers exactly the gentle wash they are actually using. The fragrance equivalent. Most Sauvage buyers wear Interlude Man to the office, to casual dinners, to social situations that do not require or reward what the formula is actually doing. Interlude Man is built around a frankincense accord of genuine complexity that develops over the course of a full day in ways that reward the wearer who creates specific space for the fragrance to be the point of the experience. The incense, the labdanum, the amber unfold progressively across 8 to 10 hours on skin, with the character at hour 6 meaningfully different from the character at hour 1. In an office with recycled air, a weekly team meeting, and colleagues who did not sign up for an olfactive experience. The $350 formula is doing the same job as a $40 warm aromatic. The sophistication is irrelevant to the context. The investment is wasted not because the formula fails, but because the situation never asked for what the formula offers. The honest question before spending $350 on a fragrance of this complexity is the same question worth asking before buying the expensive reverb pedal. How many of the modes will you actually use? If the answer is that you wear fragrance daily to work and social situations, and occasionally to something that calls for a presence, the answer is probably not the Amouage. Parfums de Marly Herod at $245 is a tobacco vanilla oriental with genuine depth and warmth that works across contexts without requiring the specific wearing experience that Interlude Man rewards. If the answer is that you collect seriously, that you are building a wardrobe of fragrances for specific occasions and moods, and that you will actually wear Interlude Man on an evening where the complexity has room to develop, then the $350 is the right price for what you are getting. It is a serious eye-nut instrument in the hands of the person genuinely building something with it. For everyone else, it is a beautifully made bottle parked on a single setting for years. 7 fragrances. The pattern shows itself without my needing to point at it directly. The ones built on a single cheap molecule and a $100 million campaign are where the badge tax is pure markup and the alternative is honestly indistinguishable. The ones with reformulation histories are selling you access to a reputation the current formula does not fully back. The flankers are charging a premium for a variation. The acquisition stories are selling you an artisan identity that corporate ownership changed. And the genuinely premium ones, Amouage, Serious Creed when the batch is right, are real instruments for specific use cases that most buyers never actually occupy. None of this is an argument against owning nice things. I own expensive fragrances. There is a real pleasure in a well-made bottle, in the specific ritual of reaching for something you chose deliberately over a long period of looking. That pleasure is not nothing. A thing you love is not the same thing as a thing you were fooled by, and sometimes they are the same bottle. A fragrance you reach for every day is worth more than a bargain sitting in a drawer. And if spending the money is what gets the bottle on the shelf and into your daily life, the money did its job. The point is not that the expensive bottle is always wrong. The point is that the expensive bottle is not always right for the reason you think it is right, and knowing the difference before spending is more useful than knowing it after. All I would ask is that you call it what it is. When you spend $435 on a Ventus, you are spending it on the legend, on the community, on the specific pleasure of owning the thing everyone talks about. That is a legitimate reason to spend money. It is not the same as spending it because the formula is irreplaceable, because nothing else smells like it, because the quality cannot be found elsewhere for less. The moment you start believing the expensive bottle is the only door to the scent, you have quietly stopped trusting your own nose, and your nose was the part that mattered from the beginning. The people who built the originals mostly understood this. The mystique arrived later, from the market, from scarcity, from a number on a resale listing that has nothing to do with what is in the bottle. The formula is the same formula it has always been. You can get most of it for $25. The other $410 is the badge. All the alternatives mentioned in this video are tagged with the best current prices I could find. And drop in the comments which of these 7 you are rethinking, because that conversation is always the most interesting one.